double Monday night games. We're going to get into what did Ben Roethlisberger look like, because I think that's the biggest story by far coming out of the Steelers and the Giants game. But that game didn't have a lot of drama. The ugly battle between the Denver Broncos and the Tennessee Titans had a lot of drama, even though it was a little bit like a mud wrestling event. And I'm still kind of fixated on the end of the game situation. And in particular, the way that Vic Fangio basically managed that late game situation makes no sense at all to me. You're playing at altitude, right? You have a great kicker in McManus who has made a 57-yard field goal in your stadium before. And you don't use your timeouts as the Titans attempt to bleed out the clock, and you finish the game with 2 timeouts remaining, it doesn't make any sense at all. And this is just a failure of game management strategy of an epic magnitude. Now, look, the fact that the Broncos even had a chance to win this game is a testament to Stephen Gostkowski having one of the worst kicking games in NFL history, and that is not an exaggeration. I got a couple of stats for you that were coming across last night. This was the first time in Stephen Gostkowski's career that he had missed 3 field goals in the same game. The Titans have made only, now I guess it's 9 of their last 22 field goals, which is unheard of. Last year, the Titans only made 44.4% of their field goal attempts. That was by far the worst in the NFL. That's also the worst in the NFL by a substantial margin in the 21st century. In fact, it's the only time in the 21st century that a team has made less than 60% of its field goal attempts. So it's not just that Gostkowski was awful last night. It is he was the choice to cure all that ailed the Titans' field goal kicking issues. Stephen Gostkowski had 6 seasons where he missed 3 or fewer field goals, and he also, of course, missed an extra point last night. I mean, this was just failure of an epic magnitude. I don't know. Maybe he decides after this game, I don't have it anymore, and he decides to retire. And he goes back to just living his life. He's has a very successful career as an NFL place kicker. Maybe he decides to continue. Maybe he's not 100% healthy. I don't know for sure. But what I do know for sure is down the stretch of this game, there was absolutely no logic being utilized at all by the Denver Broncos. And I feel like, again, even though Gostkowski missed 3 field goals and an extra point, leaving 10 points on the field, the Broncos still, if they had just used their timeouts, had an opportunity there to put the Titans in a tough spot, because they would have forced the Titans to maybe be more aggressive in their play calling. Also, they would have had over a minute left there at the end of the game, which is plenty of time to get into field goal range. It's one of, and by the way, the announce team and their inability to actually point out what was going on there, and the fact that it was not in any way a rational decision that was being made by Vic Fangio. Even if you go back and you watch, it was as if Mike Vrabel was sitting there confused as to what actually was going on, in disbelief that Fangio was letting him continue to run Derrick Henry and not actually calling any of his timeouts. It didn't make any sense at all on a logical basis, unless you just decide that Fangio had reached the decision that he didn't care about the time on the clock because he thought Gostkowski was so rattled mentally that there was no way he would make the field goal. I don't know exactly what he was thinking. It's not a smart decision-making by him, and if I'm a Broncos fan waking up bleary-eyed early this morning in the Mountain Time Zone or anywhere across the country for that matter, I'm thinking to myself, how did we lose this game without giving our offense a chance to come back down the field and put the kicker in a position to make a kick? I mean, the situation was they got to run 2 plays, I believe it was 2 plays, with basically 17 seconds left, and they got nothing out of it. Maybe it was 3 plays with 17 seconds left, I guess. But they got nowhere near actually being in position to attempt a field goal. And so it was just a fundamental failure of coaching. And the Titans won. I guess you can always say a win is a win is a win, but there wasn't a lot of reason for optimism, I don't think, if you're a Titans fan either, because there was a lot of incompetence there, a lot of early penalties, a lot of missed field goals, and you got the one goal line stand where Jeffrey Simmons kind of blew up what was an awful play call, I thought. You're running your quarterback to the right from the 1 yard line, and you tried to do a shovel pass back in the opposite direction from the goal line. It was a really questionable, I thought, play call from Denver there. But that completed all of the NFL games of the opening weekend. Now, I want to circle back around a little bit and talk about what we saw in the earlier game as well with the Denver Broncos. Sorry, not the Denver Broncos, with the Pittsburgh Steelers returning Ben Roethlisberger and what we thought about his performance, because I think that's probably the most significant aspect of that game overall. And I thought Roethlisberger was just okay. I know he had 3 touchdown passes, but he didn't look like he had the same explosiveness in his arm. And maybe it's not going to matter, because maybe the Steeler defense is just so good, and Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be back to being a big-time playmaker, and you're finally going to get James Washington as a distance guy down the field. Maybe it's not going to matter that Ben Roethlisberger doesn't seem like he's got an explosive arm anymore. But I didn't see the same pop in his throwing ability. Now, Daniel Jones made a couple of really awful throws. Otherwise, I think you would have left that game as a Giants fan feeling like, hey, he's shown some decent growth. You had Saquon Barkley not really be able to do anything in the rushing game, and that's just because of this great Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So it may be that after having a few years where Ben Roethlisberger had to come out and win games by himself effectively, it may now be that Roethlisberger really just has to be more of a game manager, doesn't need to force the ball, and Mike Tomlin can tell him, hey, if you get us 24 points, we're going to have a really good chance to win almost all the games, especially if we don't have any bad turnovers. And look, that's kind of what Ben Roethlisberger did. He got you 3 touchdown passes. He put 26 on the board, and that defense really tightened up after getting down 10-3 early in the game. So those were the 2 Monday Night Football games in totality there, breaking down everything that we saw to complete the 32-game NFL season in general, 32 NFL teams in week 1. And it was great to see the NFL back, right? It was fabulous to see all 16 games, all 32 teams being able to be out on the field. It seems like there have not been any major issues with the coronavirus, at least occurring from the games. We'll find out over the next couple of days. But based on the fact that there were 5,000 negative tests last week, it would seem highly unlikely that anything is going to occur that would be a super negative in that respect. But, man, I don't know. You know, the week 1 in the NFL has an outsized sort of standing in the way that you think about your team, because there's so much that gets put into week 1. After this, you got 7 days in between games, 6 days to get ready. And so a lot of different things happen over the course of the NFL season. But I feel like we learn a lot about the teams in week 1, about their ceilings, about their floors, and everything else associated with that. And that week 1 momentum seems to carry a lot of juice with it. So what did we learn, and what do we think we know after week 1 in the NFL? I'm going to start to kind of make some sense of this. Also going to continue to unpack what we just saw happen in this game between the Titans and the Broncos, and certainly what we saw with the Steelers finding a way to get a win against the Giants. I'm going to run through sort of the larger universe of the NFL and try to tell you a bunch of different thoughts that I have as we move forward. Also want to give you a roadmap of where we're headed on the show. Lots of good stuff coming your way. We're going to talk with Jason Whitlock. He's going to be up early with us as well, joining us for the final segment of the show in Hour 1. Then he's going to be with us for much of Hour 2. Petros Papadakis, as he always does, will join us in Hour 3, AM 570 LA Sports. So we have a lot coming in your direction. But as we're going to break here, I want to tell you, make sure you go sign up for the Outkick VIP. make a smart financial decision, get hooked up with a great gig. I'll go sign a book for you. You'll be able to comment on all of our articles. You'll be able to go to the VIP message board. It is a really great value. By the time Jason Whitlock joins us at the end of the hour, you're going to be like, you know what? I know exactly what I need to do to support Outkick the best way that I can. I'm going to go sign up for the Outkick VIP at Outkick.com. Going to be tens of thousands of you are signing up. It's amazing how much growth we've seen from the Outkick VIP, and we want you to be a part of our team. We're going to be eventually having events as places start to open back up all over the country. We want you to be a part of the Outkick universe. We want you to be an Outkick VIP. Go check it out at Outkick.com. When we come back, how dumb was the decision down the stretch of Vic Fangio? And what in the world could he possibly have been thinking? We will discuss Titans 1-0, Steelers 1-0, 16 NFL teams 1-0. Who do we feel like distinguished themselves the most in week 1 of the NFL? All that still to come. This is Outkick the Coverage. Appreciate you hanging out with us on Fox Sports Radio.